Can you hear me now?
Yes, there you are.
Right, listen, I'm just going to confess to everybody. I got the timing wrong. I did this an hour ago all to myself.
How was it?
It was, well, do you know, I thought it was pretty good, but I was in tears because I thought you all hated me. So I'm like, oh, nobody's come. Oh. And so, I mean, you know, basically I did a splendiferous performance, let's just say.
I don't doubt it. I would imagine it was probably earth-shakingly impressive. I'm surprised we didn't feel like the universe shudder a little bit, like that's how good it was.
I know, but then I went on Twitter to find out, you know, what was happening, and I saw Kelly, and so I said to Kelly, I just had nobody, you know, and she went, what, you've done it? You're not on, you're on in 3 minutes. So I'm here ready to do it again. Is that all right?
That's fantastic. And for that matter, feel free when we're done to do it one more time later today. Knock yourself out.
You know what? I mean, you know, why not? I'm on a roll.
You're right. That's right. I don't want to be the one that puts a damper on your roll. If you got a roll going, go with it, man.
Do you know what, Mike? It just confirms what you all know about me. I can't hide the fact that I work in special ed because that's where I belong.
We all have our things, right? This is look, you fit nicely. The group can appreciate it. Everybody's happy. It's okay. Yeah. And you have some people here ready to support you. And I bet if you said, I'm going to do this in another hour, somebody would show up again.
Well, I'm not going to cry this time, because
I bet Suiting would show up one more time. I bet she would. I bet if you asked her, I bet she'd show up.
Oh, again. That's because I pay her. You know, I pay her to be nice to me. You know, somebody. But can you believe I literally sat here an hour ago?
It's awesome.
I know. I am really stupid. Anyway, should we crack on, guys? Should we crack on? You know,
let's crack on. I don't even know what that means, but I want to do that. So let's crack on. All right. I'm in the background. If it all falls apart, just yell my name.
I will. But thanks for the opportunity, and thanks for my second airing of this.
Yes, thank you for being part of it. I was so excited when I saw you were going to join us. This is wonderful. So thank you.
Okay, so it's the topic I've chosen is, I was thinking about AT and assistive tech, and then I thought, what else does it stand for? And so I've loosely moved it around to be attitudinal traits, because you know what, it's something that I hear in discussions all the time, particularly when AT specialists get together. The issues that we're going to talk about in the next 45 minutes, they get raised all the time. And yet I kind of want to challenge you, and I can feel some blog posts and some workshops coming out of this, because we're saying the same things again and again, and we have to kind of actually start to address it. So let's see what I'm kind of talking about. So we live in an AT world. You are at an AT conference, and everybody else, I'm sure, is showing you phenomenal things. You could use this, you can do this. If you have a child, this is a thing I've found, or this is a little tweak. I'm not going to do that. I'm talking about the attitudes and the things that make it work. We live in a world of assistive technology now. Well, you do in America, I do in the UK. When I work in Albania, I have to say, not the same. They don't have anything, you know, like the resources that we have in our kind of environment in our countries. But if you look at the desk on left, you know, a pen and paper, that is assistive technology, isn't it? Making notes, quickly making notes about something. Our phones, our smartphones are phenomenal little computers. Our Chromebooks, our laptops, our whatever you have, our tablets, they all, again, are phenomenally powerful bits of kit. And of course, we've got smartwatches now that do all kinds of things. And then we've got a kind of whole industry around more specialized kit. So we've got the everyday, what I'm going to call the everyday stuff, and then we've got the specialized stuff. And one of the things that brings great joy to my heart, and obviously to lots and lots of students, is the Xbox adaptive controller. For a student who's got brothers and sisters who game and they want to be part of it, this little simple thing has allowed them to be part of Super Mario's race or whatever they're doing. So we've got specialist stuff. We've got what I'm going to call now everyday stuff. All right. So we're in an AT world. And unusually now, when you can all see, if you can see, you'll see I'm no spring chicken. So when I started, tape recorders were a big thing. Cassette tape recorders were a huge, big thing. Video wasn't even, that was a word you kind of hummed. It wasn't real. And now I can say that the big three, Microsoft and Google and Apple, they've got inclusive assistive technology embedded in their offerings for free with their products. And no longer, when they first put them in, didn't we have to go down a menu like 72 layers to find the accessibility bit? And then what could we do? We could change the shape and size and the movement of the mouse. And that was the big deal. That was the first thing. And we used to think that was phenomenal. And now we can do lots of things. And if you think of what an awful lot of our work is, text to speech, speech to text, I mean, that is available on all platforms for free, and it's not hidden. It's just there. So we've got all this stuff, and we can show people, we can demo, we can say, this is the button. And if you don't want to type, or if you've got a problem typing, just click there. Tell me your story. Tell me what you're doing. So we have got this, guys. We're in an assistive technology world. And yet I go to meeting after meeting online or, virtually or conference, and people are saying to me, it's not being used, can't get the teacher to engage with it, child doesn't want to use it. And so I've been in the last, I would say, particularly through the pandemic, I've been kind of puzzling about and trying to pull out, so what are these attitudes? What is preventing us from using even just the stuff we've got? There's even websites, things like, I quite like this one, Speech Texter, and now that's a free website, and I can speak into it and it transcribes straight away, and gives me lovely text. So, we've got all this stuff there to use. So we've got specialist stuff. There's somebody doing painting with eye gaze. And I have to say, eye gaze wasn't a big thing a few years ago. It's fairly, straightforward now. And the newest iPads are going to have be eye gaze enabled. We'll be able to use it directly on the iPads. And certainly speech to text, text to speech. It's so, it is an everyday thing that all kinds of, if you just think of Alexa, speaking to Alexa and telling Alexa what to do. So controlling with our voices. All of this is not new. It is just there. So my first kind of challenge, and I guess what I've done with this session is to make, I really want you to think and to embrace some of these issues. When I go into schools, I ask to see, what's your written policy on assistive technology? What's your policy on inclusion? What have you got written down about parent partnership? What have you got written down? And they've, I don't know in America, I'm not so clear as to what you have to have, but we have to have what's called a local offer. And the school and the authority, or in your case, the district, have to put together a local offer. If your child comes to this school or this area, this is what will be on offer. Which is all well and good. You can write the most beautiful policies in the world, guys, but if you don't actually deliver on what's written there, then they're just bits of paper or bits of virtual world. And we're very good at policy writing. We're not so good at checking that everything that we say we do, we actually do. And our education systems here, definitely, here in the UK and in America and in Australia, they've been designed really for, if you like, kind of a one size fits all, that we homogeneously move through, and we rely on ourselves to find our slightly differing routes. They're not designed for some of our kids who need, something special, something really, really different. And that can obviously sometimes cause a conflict. But that, again, we're talking attitudes. When you speak to the children concerned themselves, and this is even down, little ones at kindergarten, definitely elementary, but when you get to middle and certainly high, they will tell you how different, how out of step they feel. I'm different, and it's usually negative difference. You know, I'm thick, I'm stupid, I can't do that. Everybody else can read, everybody else can write. Carol, I'm thick. I'm, you know, they take it on themselves because they see all their peers doing stuff and appearing to do stuff so easily. So we have a kind of negative, therefore, attitude to education, which is one of the bits we have to overcome. So there we are. We've got an education system, we've got a curriculum, we've got resources, and we've got barriers. And those barriers can be embedded, they can be huge, hard ones, they can be flimsy ones, but they're there. So the first thing I want to say to you is, and this is a direct challenge to everyone who works in AT, is how fixed and how flexible are you? You may know that a particular child with a particular issue can be not resolved, because we can never make everything perfect, but can be supported and have increased access by using technique C or this bit of kit. But what happens if for some reason, and these are the reasons we'll talk about in the session, the attitudes or the environment or something that's happened before is preventing that from happening? What is happening there if we've got that? So are you flexible enough to say, actually, okay, that would be my preferred route, but let's try this instead, and maybe we'll get back onto my preferred route later. So the first thing I'm going to say is that I personally adopt as flexible an approach as I can. In other words, I've got a toolbox of ideas. Yes, I do feel at this stage in my career, I've got a pretty good idea of what the best route is, but I'm open to doing this in partnership and picking the one that's going to work, as opposed to the one that one feels is the optimum. So let's start with the educators and the teachers you work with. I hear this all the time in these discussions, you know, oh, teacher's not keen, teachers doesn't want to do it. I left all the instructions, I go back, it's not happening, blah, blah, blah. And I hear this, and you must hear it all the time, and you will have said it and you will have experienced it. We all have. And it all comes down to teacher or educator anxiety. The kind of reasons, or if you want to call them excuses, that we hear all the time are, number one, it's cheating. There's a big brigade that think using assistive technology is cheating. To this very day, it's there. We also hear, oh, it's too much work. It's just one student, too much work for me to do that. You know, by the time I've got to the lesson and I've got all my other resources and I'm ready to go and I've settled everybody down and we're good to go, and then I've got to set this up. Or maybe I have to preload a video or put vocabulary in onto a communication device. Too much. It's just too much. What with the too much, we'll come back to this several times in this session, but also that is linked with the next one. I don't know how to do it. Do it for me. This de-skilling. And no matter how much you might try and show somebody in one stop and then leave them with instructions, for many people, that's not enough to make it happen. If it's not their thing, if tech is not their thing, showing them once how to do something is not going to work. One of the big ones that I've only recently managed to get people to talk about is, what if it goes wrong? And it was a teacher who was really trying to work with me, didn't think it was cheating, did think it was too much work, did admit that they didn't know how to do it. And I spent, so much time. We did, little weekly sessions, and then we did some little 10-minute Zooms a couple of times a week. I really wanted to see how much time I had to put in to skill someone up for it to work. It was a little kind of personal experiment of mine. And then eventually she said to me, right, okay, I've got it, but what do I do if it goes wrong? And in the discussion, very frank discussion that followed, it was all about, I have to be in control of my classroom. I'm the teacher. I have to know what to do and how to move forward. And this is beyond me. So if it goes wrong, I don't know what to do next. I'm going to be stuck. And that's a huge one. So support is something I want you to think about, how you make your ongoing support. How do we help somebody who's unsure and who's anxious? And it is anxiety, because I have never yet met a teacher who doesn't want to do the best for the children they work with. So there has to be some attitudinal issues around, what's holding them back. One of the one that always I despair about the most is, we've tried that. Oh, we did that, Carol. We had one of those last year. Well, how long did you try it for? 3 weeks. And you guys know that to actually change methods of learning, to change, if we were doing behavior, if I'm working on, because I work on autism and vision impairment and behavior and a bit of everything, I'm a bit of everything person, it's not just AT. And if I'm trying to change, for example, an autistic behavior, there's something we want to look at. If it's the right thing to do, let's just not go down the route of saying that we have to normalize young people with autism. That's not what I'm talking about. But if there's a behavior that we need to change, it's not going to happen overnight. There's no kind of magic thing that just fits. So it's the same with AT. They say, oh, well, we tried speech to text, but, and when you unpick that, they didn't. They tried it maybe in one lesson and the battery ran out, or they tried it in a lesson, it made too much noise, and they didn't stop to work out how they could go past that. So there is no magic key. And a lot of the work I do, if I'm doing training with teachers, I will show this slide and say, right, okay, there's no magic key with technology that I'm going to be able to give you something and instantly, with no effort on your part, with no effort on the student's part, it's going to work and it's going to be fine. I have to say now, there are one or two things that come pretty damn close, but on the whole, it's going to require some effort. So we start with something that is very dear to my heart, whatever I'm working on, we have to know our students well. If you are fully invested in the young people you work with, then you are invested in them and you want to help find a solution. It makes you solution focused. If they are just Kathy who comes to lesson 3 on a Tuesday, well, there's no investment there. There's no kind of personal connection. And it surprises me that people say, oh, I know so-and-so very well. And then, I might go and have a chat with the child and we end up, I find things the teachers no idea about, no idea. Not because the teacher's useless, just because they haven't had the time or done this kind of really getting to know somebody. Who knows them best? Well, their parents and carers and siblings, without a doubt. So the more complex the child, the more time I would spend with family to get the full picture. And we have to curate different perspectives. There might have been other professionals involved. There might have been teachers that had them last year or the year before or 2 years ago. Remember, though, if you're taking information from teachers a couple of years back, that everybody develops, unless you have a regressive illness, in which case it's going to be very sad when you hear what they could do 2 or 3 years ago, and now you're dealing with somebody who has far more limited ability. But we need that information from a couple of years ago to see where they've moved to. And how do we gather that understanding information? How do you do that? A written report really doesn't crack it. It really doesn't. It's about those conversations and those questions and the little asides that somebody will tell you about a child when they're talking, but they probably wouldn't put down in print. How do you record it? How do you share it? How do you distill all the knowledge you gain over the year and then give it in a very distilled, useful form to the next teacher? And, all of that coming together is really, it's vital. I can't stress enough how vital it is. So it does start from Maslow. We all know this. You've all done Maslow in your training, but you've got no earthly point at all if a child is hungry, tired, frightened, any of the Maslow kind of issues, they're not going to be engaged in learning. We have to deal with that first. I often show this slide because for me, when in normal times when I'm traveling, and people say, "What do you mind what kind of hotel you stay in?" I go, "No, I don't mind at all. As long, chain hotels, absolutely fine. Just good Wi-Fi, please. Good Wi-Fi," because that's my kind of Maslow. Because I'm going to work at night. If I really struggle, then that's no good. So we have to understand that attitudes, if we're talking attitudes now, and this is from the teacher and from the student, we have to be secure and happy and comfortable in ourselves, and so do they. If you've had a huge row with your partner before you left for work in the morning and come into classroom, you have to park it at the door, because from the moment you walk in that door, you're being paid to do the best for the kids, not to worry about what's happening at home. Then we have equity of access. So the pandemic has helped us and forced us to go kind of into a good blended learning model. And we're getting there, guys. The blended learning I'm seeing around the world is really quite interesting. There's some lovely stuff happening. But there isn't equity of access at home. There's lots and lots of reports, and you'll find them, of students who've got no internet access at home, or they've got slow internet access. They've got some who haven't got a computer themselves, or they work from a cell phone, and maybe maybe there's one computer or one cell phone for the family with 2 or 3 children in different year groups. So equity of access is something certainly in the UK we're struggling with. Now, that's not an attitude thing, but it does create an attitude, because I've got students saying to me, well, what's the point? Because I can't do it at home. What's the point, Carol? You're showing me these things and you're saying it'll help me with my homework. I can't. So instantly it's that kind of kickback, hit back at me, because it's not going to work, because my life doesn't work like that. So cheating, I do address this very gently, usually. It's often somebody wearing glasses who will tell me that it's cheating. So I ask them to take their glasses off and have a wee look around, and can they read me this, or can they do that? And they go, no. And I say, well, if kids come into your class with glasses on, do you ask them to take them off? And they go, no. And otherwise they won't be. And I said, well, that's assistive technology. If somebody's in a wheelchair heading down the corridor in your school, do you say, sorry, you can't use that wheelchair? Well, no, Carol. Well, you know, that's assistive technology. It's there and being used without you having to do anything. Then I talk about the bonus of assistive technology in the world. My grandmother, on a Monday morning, would boil water and put it into a big metal tub out in the backyard. And you put the cleanest washing in first, and you banged it with a stick thing called a post-it. And it was called a post tub, and you banged and banged and banged it into the soapy hot water. And then you took it out and it went through a mangle and it got hung up to dry. And then you put the next dirtier stuff in, and the next, till it was kind of lukewarm and horrible and sludgy. I can remember it because it was my job on the mangle to help. So, and now, of course, we've got washing machines, and I can say I want to wash at this temperature, I can put the stuff in, and it just magically does it all for me, and it comes out nice and clean and fresh. That's assistive technology. So I talk to people about that. I talk to people who tell me it's cheating about microscopes. The human eye can only see so much. And you wouldn't say to a scientist who was trying to look for the coronavirus, oh, you've got to look with your naked eye. You know, we allow people to use it in their work world. So why can't we use it? So I don't just kind of rant at them really quickly. We sit down, hopefully, usually if it's working with me, it's over a coffee. We meet and we have a chat, we talk this through. So what we want is, do they need signposting? And the answer is yes. Here's one of your top tips for the session. If you've got an anxious teacher who's unsure, then it's our job to make it an easy start for them and give them answers. There's lots of pictures about this on the internet with what, who, where, when, where, why, and you know, all the questions that they need to know to feel secure to implement it. But I've chosen this one because it's that pendulum approach. And if that question mark stands either for the child who needs the AT or the technology itself, when it hits into the other things, it causes that chain reaction. And the teacher, remember, we're removing their anxiety and we're kind of predicting what's going to worry them and what's going to be a problem. And we're giving them those answers and trying to anticipate. So let me give you an example. For example, if I'm talking about assistive technology in terms of literacy and reading books, I would always show them, and of course it depends on the age and stage of education that we're dealing with, but I would show them things like the little talking photo books that we can use, very low-tech stuff, or the hearing activities you can do just with tubes and little phones and listening skills. We might get onto QR codes for, you know, favorite stories, or record our own story and then have it playing back on a QR code, and so easy. And they always think, and I mean, come on, guys, these have been away for years, but you know, we can do miracles. We can do QR treasure hunts, and we can do QR code auditory sequencing, auditory memory. We can do, I can do a whole morning's workshop on them, brilliant. And then we can show them all the amazing resources online that they can let children use, Storyline Online, the Tar Heel books, which are lovely, using an amazing app like Book Creator. And do you know what? I don't show them 5 apps. I would always start with Book Creator because it kind of has lots and lots of functionality. I can personalize in lots of ways. But if that teacher or that child doesn't get away with it, it doesn't work for them, then I bring in another and say, well, let's look at this one or this one. Which one suits you better? Which one are you happier with? And let people, find their match that they're good. Because the goal is for them to do the work, not to fight with the AT. If somebody says to me, I'm not very confident, but I know how to do a PowerPoint, right? Okay, let's look at assistive technology PowerPoints and how can we use that to be right for you. And then we've got the problem that sometimes the assistive technology in school is only used in a certain lesson. And that's no good at all. That's no good at all. We need to use it, make it part of everyday routine opportunities. So using the daily routine as an opportunity for an assistive technology makes it really, really sensible. So for example, if they go to the dining hall and there's a menu and they can't read it, they might use a scanning pen to have it read out to them to make their choice. And that means that we're beginning to validate the use of a scanning pen, because we're saying, do you know what? It doesn't only work when you're in English and you have to read the questions for your comprehension. It will also work there. It will also work on your homework. It will, and we're using that everyday routine opportunity. By using it everywhere and generalizing, we are validating the tech's existence, but we're also allowing for spaced repetition of skill and input. I've already said one of the biggest problems we have in attitudes is people saying, well, we tried that, it didn't work. And things don't work until they've gone through motor memory and reduced the need for working memory. If every time you're using a bit of AT, a huge chunk of your working memory is taken up trying to make the damn stuff work, then you haven't got enough left for the learning or for the teaching if you're the teacher. So spaced repetition of skills and inputs means we've got that retrieval practice and we've got it going into long-term memory. And of course, it supports consistency between locations. Assistive technology is not location-based. It's not something you only use in English or literacy or maths or science or whatever, the subject is, that it can be used anywhere and support you anywhere. I do talk in a lot of the work I do, and here we're kind of floating a big time, but I do talk a lot about how to work with somebody successfully. And this is attitude again, never face to face. So it's always side by side. So you've got that shared viewpoint in the middle. Point 3 would be the iPad or the worksheet or whatever. So we're side by side, not direct looking at each other, looking shared view of the piece of work or the activity or the making of the book in Book Creator. We're doing it together. And I use that approach with the most complex and challenging children, and equally with adults, staff and teachers and parents and carers. Never confrontational face-to-face, always side to side, because you're then setting up a positive attitude environment. So obviously what I'm looking at is a solution-based attitude to working. Every problem you give me, every problem you throw at me, my job is to say, okay, not to have the answers, is to say, right, okay, let's find an answer to this. There must be a way to do this, all right? So it's never, oh, you could use this. It's let's work together and find a way to do this. Then I'm giving ownership of that solution to the teacher, and ownership of that is more likely to make it work. So if we come on to the student, I want to make that happy student in the lineup in all the kind of, previous lessons and things where they've been unhappy. I want to try and change that. And so for whoever I'm working with, I'm aiming for this we, me distinction that is shown here. We are collaborative. We are doing this together. I'm going to work with you, the student. I'm going to work with you, the teacher. I'm going to work with you, the family. I'm going to work with you, the other professional, the paraprofessional, whoever. We together are powerful. It's not about me having an idea and leaving you with a list of ideas. We are going to do this, and I'm going to stay with you right through the process, not physically, but I'll be checking in, and you'll be able to contact me if you're unsure. On the other side, in the reflection, is me. And that young person in particular needs to feel that I value their unique needs. It's not, oh, I've had somebody with Down syndrome before and we used this, you know. I've taught loads of dyslexic and they all got away with this. No, you are you, and let's look at what you see and you need and how you work, and let's find a solution that you're comfortable with, that you're happy with. So a lot of this comes from understanding and acceptance of whatever their particular barriers are. And here I've used dyslexia. Right from the beginning, right from as young as they are, I advocate books and stories that talk about difference in a positive way, that don't have the negative connotations that a lot of our older children have grown up with. Now, with the little ones, there's loads of stories and things on the market now. For the older ones, there are still stories and books that they can read for the older ones. But you know what? Our young, if we're talking dyslexia, our young dyslexics are online. And so I introduce them to websites and chat rooms where they can, you know, speak to other people who are having the same struggles as themselves. TikTok is fabulous for that. Instagram, fabulous for that. YouTube, fabulous for that. And I would carefully curate a set of the resources, and we can look at them together. But it's understanding and accepting, this is me. This isn't, you know, a bad thing. It's just the same as, and I always make them laugh, because I always say something like, oh, do you know what? I want to be really thin and gorgeous looking and appear on the cover of Vogue in a beautiful dress. And they all kind of, oh, laughing, you know, at this old fat lady who's got this unattainable aim. And I say, okay, so maybe I'm never going to make the cover of Vogue, but I'm still me. And we get there. We absolutely get there. But it's harder to successfully change the attitude towards AT, particularly around the 13, 14, 15, where they're furious sometimes that they're different and they have struggles. But what I do, don't give up. We'll come back to it in a minute, but it's about saying, you know, that's okay. You're furious now. We can't change it. So how are we going to move forward? It's that acceptance. The minute they go, yeah, actually, this is me and it's not the end of the world. Then I need help, then I'm flying. It'll work. So the difference now, if you see, between the what, how, why, when, and so on, is that now that middle bit of the jigsaw is the student. Everything has to revolve around them and their perceptions and their needs. So the teacher, it was that dynamic of when we introduce this, how is it going to knock on to the other things you do? With the student, they have to feel at the heart of everything. And the family are going to hopefully give me information. I'm a big one for reaching out to families. Do you know what? Again, people talk to me about, and we could do a whole thing on working with families. They talk to me about hard to reach families who aren't interested. I seriously haven't found a single family, and I have worked with really complex families. I've never found anyone who doesn't want their children to get help and to do better. It's there's huge anxieties, feeling they're not good enough, they didn't do well at school, they hated. We can, again, it can get past that. They have the information you need, such as what to do what's he like at home when he can't do something and he blows up. How do you calm him down? Do you let him run outside? Do you know how long does it take? Is there something you offer or do? You know, all the what's his inner resilience like if he feels something's too difficult? Does he even try? Or how do you cajole him along? All those kind of discussions. And of course, the student themselves. And that's such a huge one, isn't it? Right from being little, I work with kids, and I'm always, the first thing I do is chat to them about them. Tell me what's special about you. Tell me everything about you. And we can get stories about their fairy princesses. And somebody just this week told me that he was an alien and he wasn't a real little boy. He's 5, this little fella. I come from Mars. And so some people would call me a Martian, but I'm not a Martian, I'm an alien. And I just am very different from everybody else. And that's how he started. And but that same boy, when he hits 15, 16, I would still be having those chats. Where are you? What do you need? How can I help you? How can I help you is a phrase I use all the time. How can I help you? What do you want me to do for you? What's the problem? How can I help? And with students, we talk about the wrong way, the right way, and what their way is going to look like. And that comes back to the fact that, yeah, as I said early on, I may have an answer for a question, you know, an AT solution, but it might not be the way that's going to work for them. I know it's the right way for what should work, but unless they engage and work with me, it's not going to happen. So at what point do we add support? If you've heard me talk before, you will know that I believe in not waiting for an assessment. If a teacher signals to me or a child signals to me they're having trouble, we get in there and we look at help. Remember where we started, we're in an AT rich world. There's all that stuff there. So we can use stuff without assessing. We can give people skills. We can get them started. We can prevent bad attitudes to education, negative attitudes to learning. We can prevent those starting if we're quick enough. So yes, I would start. I love having AT in early years, in your kindergarten, in your elementary school. And in the same way that if we were doing an art lesson, over, say, a term, you might do painting, you might do clay, you might have colored pencils, you might have crayons, you might do some collage. In that same way, in your early years, we want it to be inclusive. So we want audiobooks, we want books on iPads, we want them making their own little story videos. We want them speech to text, telling stories, and then having that as a QR code next to their own illustration so they can listen to it. All that stuff, all that assistive technology is there to be played with. And I'm using the word play in the sense of learning about the possibilities of the objects that you're playing with, in the same way that they play with everything else. It's about learning. Now, the other beauty of that is that one of the attitudinal problems we have with older students is they say, oh, I don't want to use it, it makes me look different. I don't want to use it. I don't, you know, it's too. So now we're in a world of speech to text, text speech, all of those. It's not such a big deal, guys, and it should be used as a choice for anyone in the classroom. I recently taught a lesson for somebody, and when it came to the actual writing bit, and I said anyone can use, they were all on Chromebooks, and somebody said, and I said, I know there's some people in the room who actually do speech to text. That's absolutely fine, go right ahead. And a girl put up her hand and said, is that anybody could do that? And I said, well, why not? You know, I want your story that's out of your head. I don't worry about how you've given it to me. So it's about making it acceptable right from the beginning. There are points on the road where it falls on barren land and you do feel like you're banging your head against the brick wall, folks. And that's hard. And you come in with beautiful ideas and the child is just not receptive to them. Or maybe they've been receptive to them early on, and then they hit that awkward kind of, you know, prepubescent stage, and suddenly everything everyone suggests is wrong, and they're not going to use that, even though it did work before, they're just not going to use it. I allow that to happen. As frustrating as it is, I don't insist on somebody continuing to use the assistive. If somebody, I had one girl who took her glasses off constantly in lessons. She didn't want to admit she had a visual impairment, quite a severe one actually. And she used to almost challenge me. She was in my class. She would almost challenge me. She'd look at me defiantly and take the glasses off, waiting for me to say, put your glasses on. And I never did, never did. She was 14. I'm not going to get into a discussion about your glasses. If you take your glasses off, you're not going to see the board. You're not going to see your work properly. It's your call. And I can tell you that after kind of pushing this, if you like, little battle of wills for a while, the glasses didn't come off, or they would go back on sneakily a few minutes later. So the attitude, we sometimes have to say, yeah, okay, at the moment you don't want to use this. But when they get to that love of learning and understanding that they're as capable as everyone else, so this is back to acceptance and understanding their own barriers, then we get that fertile flourish ground. And that's the time, guys, you're in there and you are giving them every opportunity and saying, oh, you did well with that, but we could make it even better with this. And that enthusiasm, building on success, that's the time that AT absolutely exponentially increases options for learning. And at that point and all the way through with the student, I am teaching them how to advocate for themselves. I'm teaching them how to run the tech, because what I'm also therefore doing is making young people who can go into a classroom and set up their own tech and use their own tech. And they don't need the class teacher to be doing that. All the class teacher has to do is understand that that's how they're going to produce their work. They don't have to set it up. They don't have to do that. So the more skilled you can make your young people, the more independent. Be honest, is that not our job as educators? Is that not our job to make them independent learners? Of course it is, you know, so AT is no different, folks. So as we come towards the end of my session, and you're probably pleased it's probably coffee time now, and it's certainly gin and tonic time here in the UK. Remember, what's the absolute winning resource in a classroom? And the answer is you. The answer is not the AT. It's you and your attitudes and the power, the energy that you bring to the session, whether you're an AT specialist visiting or whether you are the class teacher. You are the one. Your attitudes set the tone for what happens and how exciting and how intense the learning experience is. If you can't be bothered, if you are having a bad day, if you give off all this aura, even if you're saying the right words, the kids read the body language and their attitude will match yours and go up a notch. So let's finish with a few bits of top tips. This picture is to represent listening. I like to think of these two having a little discussion and bird A listening to bird B. But what do we mean by listening? I love this Chinese character for listening. Notice down this side, we have the ear, all right? And the ear is a huge bit of listening, obviously it is. But there's a difference, is there not, between hearing and listening? We can hear things, but do we actually attend to them, make sense of them, internalize them? That's listening. It's not hearing, it's listening. And then it's about you. There you are at the top, you listening. And notice the next one's really interesting. It's eyes, because actually we listen with our ears and our eyes. Let me give you an example to make sense. If right now behind me, there was a sudden bang, something dropped on the floor, I would hear that, but instinctively I would turn around to look to see what it was. So my eyes were part of the hearing and part of the listening. The ears heard the sound, the eyes then can make sense of the sound. So the eyes are big. I mean, we could do a big session on this, but we're not. But the next one's important. That horizontal line means undivided attention. It's so easy when you're having conversations with people to not be in the moment with them. And you know what I mean by that. Your attitude has to be in the moment. You are with them while they are sharing things with you. You can't be thinking about what you're going to make for tea. You can't be thinking, I've got 30 other kids. You can't be thinking, I've got to do. You have to, at that moment, if you genuinely want them to open up, whether it be a colleague, a parent, a carer, a child, whoever, it's undivided attention. And for me, it's all about the heart. I care absolutely 100% about what I'm doing. It is a job, but it's more than a job. I absolutely want to match the best AT solution I can to the child's needs that will work in that situation, that the educators are happy with, family are happy with, child's happy with. And if I get all that right, it's going to make a difference. So however they speak to us, do we know how to listen? And there's three bits. We have to listen to them. And remember, that's not just hearing, that's soaking it all in. We have to understand what they're saying to us, and don't be frightened to ask for clarification. But here's the third bit, we have to act on it. You will never get children or teachers to share and disclose honestly with you, again, if you fail to act. And it doesn't mean you know, sometimes they'll ask, I mean, my little Martian friend wants me to sort him out a spaceship by tomorrow. And I had to say, that's not going to happen. Carol isn't a spaceship maker, but we will do. And so, in other words, there will be an action to match his request and his thing. But, you know, it's not about feeling you've got to jump to exactly what they want every time. But if you don't act at all, what message are we giving? We're giving that message that what they say doesn't matter. So you've got loads and loads of ideas to pull from. The best AT specialists have got a toolbox of ideas. And, oh yeah, let's try this. Or this might be fun. Or do you know what? You did really well with that. So let's have a go with this one because it's just a bit harder. And as you move into high school, it's going to give you more functionality. And don't be frightened to make mistakes. If you stumble, make it a part of the dance, the AT dance. Because what I'm looking for and the attitude that I need from everybody is a can-do attitude, an attitude that says there is a way to do this. And let's all work together to share our knowledge. This is why this conference is amazing. You'll be picking up so many new hints and tips for your toolbox. But it's now about attitudes to make it happen rather than us just moaning, so-and-so won't do it. It'll not happen, it'll flop. Let's change those attitudes. So I'm going to finish there by saying thank you. That's me on Twitter at Carol J. Allen. I'm thinking of you now as all those little fairies on the dandelion. I'm going to blow a big blow to let you go off to the rest of your conference and your working lives. But remember, each of those little fairies floating off has got a little seed there. And I'm hoping there's a wee tiny seed that you've taken from the UK, from my kitchen. I'm sitting in my kitchen, from the UK, that you've taken away. And at some point with some child, that will plant and it will make a difference. Thank you so, so much for listening.
Carol, that was awesome.
What do you reckon? First time through better? Second time through better?
I mean, I'm saying do it a third time. It's just going to be like, I'll fall out of my chair. It'll be that good. No, it's really good.
We'll go for the hat trick, maybe.
I love your visuals as you're talking. You're so engaging.
Well, you know, I'm not very good at PowerPoints with like lots of words on that I've got to, when I think about a topic, when it's something I'm thinking about, it's just kind of in my head. And then the visuals are just to remind me what to say next. That's how I work, I'm afraid.
I hear you. I love it. I think it's great. I tend to do that too, where it's pictures. It's more pictures than anything. Yeah, so good. But the pictures are great.
Good.
Every time I scanned my work area here and I was like, oh, what's going on over here? And I would drift over. So your pictures did their job. They drew me in.
Okay, good. I'm glad at least some people chose to come to it second time around. And the tears the first time of feeling I was all in a little room on my, I'm never going to live this down. I am never going to live this down, Mike.
It is a shame that you did this to yourself and that you told us about it. If you had just done it and not said anything, it would have been fine.
Yeah, well, I'd already told Kelly and I hadn't bribed her enough not to tell you guys.
Good point. Yeah, the minute you told her, it's just a matter of time before everybody else knew too. So yeah.
Okay.
But cool. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. The chance to be part of it. I'm internally grateful that you guys are including me in things now. So yes, that's lovely.
I love that you're including that you're joining us for things, and please think of us when you're doing things over on your side, because we'd love to be part of stuff like that.
Well, we've got for any of your colleagues, this isn't really AT, but for any colleagues who work with children with sensory difficulties, we're running a big sensory festival weekend, and I could probably blag 1 or 2 free places, but it's for people who work with children, say, who are autistic or have got or profound multiple learning difficulty. It's not so much an AT one.
Yeah, right.
Certainly, if there's an AT one, I will always flag it up.
Please,
Oh,
for sure.
Jenny's saying she's been to visit Call Scotland. I adore Call Scotland. Oh, Jenny, is it Jenny?
I would like to visit them too. That would be awesome.
If you come to my house, I'll take you there because I've got a great flat we can get cheaply in Edinburgh, really cheap.
Okay.
And it's right near my favorite pubs.
This all sounds fantastic. I don't know why I'm not looking up an airplane ticket right now.
Yeah, well, we'll do it. I'll have a word with the call guy. I've done web, they're obviously friends of mine. But we could maybe have a Call Scotland event, couldn't we?
I would love that. I've worked with them when they did their Chrome wheel, when they put one of those pamphlets together, and they're so great. They're so fun to work with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know that I honestly think hidden in Call Scotland that there's a little room, a darkened room of nerds who never sleep, because you know how resources on the web often kind of the links don't work sometimes after they've been out there a couple of weeks, you know, or they don't put the new stuff on. And flipping Call Scotland, every time I go, it's like works, it's up. And I'm thinking, do you guys never rest?
That's it. I think you nailed it. A darkened room of nerds.
Yes.
Yes, I think that's awesome. All right, Carol, let me shut us down so I can get the next group in here and then we can wrap this day up.
And thank you very much. Bye, everybody.
Yeah, thanks. It was good seeing you.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.